Christmas Eve always smells like burned sugar and old grudges in my family. That year was no different. The house looked the same as it always did: fake pine tree shedding plastic needles, gold tinsel taped back together from the 90s, and my mother's cinnamon candles trying way too hard to mask the scent of reheated ham. I stood in the doorway for a second longer than necessary, clutching a paper bag of gifts I bought on clearance, already wishing I'd pretended to be sick. I hadn't even taken my coat off when my brother's voice sliced through the room. "Well, look at that," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The city finally released its trash, huh?" Laughter followed. Not big laughter, the kind that pretends to be joking but lands sharp anyway. I forced a smile, because that's what I always did. I was 34 years old and still shrinking myself to fit into my childhood living room. My brother, Mark, was leaning against the fireplace like he owned the place, one arm draped around his wife's waist. He looked good. Expensive sweater, clean haircut, the kind of confidence that comes from never having to doubt your next paycheck. "Hey, Mark," I said, keeping my voice light. "Merry Christmas." He smirked and glanced down at the bag in my hands. "What is that? Donations you picked up on the way?" I felt my jaw tighten. My mother shot me a look that said, "Don't start, not tonight." My father pretended to be very interested in the football game. Same old choreography. "I brought gifts," I said, "like everyone else." Mark laughed again, this time right in my face. "With what money, sis? Still living off trash?" That word hung there. Trash. Like it was a fact, not an insult. I wanted to say something sharp, something that would finally shut him up, but the truth was ugly, and he knew it. I lived in a tiny apartment above a closed-down laundromat. I paid rent late more months than not, and yes, on bad weeks, I dug through grocery store dumpsters after closing. Perfectly good food wrapped in plastic, tossed because of sell-by dates. Survival doesn't care about pride. So I stayed quiet. Dinner was worse. The table was crowded, the food was heavy, and every question felt like a trap. "So," Mark said between bites of ham, "still doing whatever it is you do?" "I work," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "Doing what? Blogging about feelings? Selling rocks online?" I looked down at my plate. My hands were shaking just enough that I had to set my fork down. "I consult," I said. "For who?" his wife asked, genuinely curious in the way people are when they already assume the answer is no one important. "Companies, startups, sometimes investors." Mark snorted. "Sure you do." My mom cleared her throat. "Mark, be nice." He held up his hands. "I'm just saying, some of us live in the real world. Some of us build things, careers, families." He squeezed his wife's hand. I swallowed hard. After dinner, gifts came out. Mark handed my parents a weekend getaway. My mother cried. My father clapped him on the back. When it was my turn, I gave my mom a framed photo I'd restored digitally, one of her and my grandmother, colors brought back to life. She smiled politely, set it aside. Then Mark handed me my gift. It was heavy, wrapped beautifully. For a second, just a stupid second, I thought maybe this year would be different. I opened it. A book, hardcover, bright red. "How to Build Wealth from Nothing," Mark read aloud. "Thought it might help." The room went quiet. My face burned. "Very funny," I said. "Oh, I'm serious. You need all the help you can get." I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. "I'm going to get some air." Outside, the cold slapped my face awake. I stood on the porch, breathing in sharp December air, trying not to cry. Snow crunched somewhere behind me. "You okay?" my dad asked softly. "I'm fine," I lied. He nodded like he believed me, which hurt worse. Mark didn't mean— "Yes, he did," I said. "He always does." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again and again.
I pulled it out, annoyed, ready to silence it. Forbes. I frowned. I wasn't subscribed. The notification banner glowed against the dark. Anonymous founder behind Blackwell Protocol finally revealed. My heart stuttered. Blackwell Protocol was everywhere lately. Tech podcasts, financial news, a data security framework that supposedly saved billions in corporate breaches. No one knew who built it. The founder had stayed completely anonymous. My hands went cold. Another notification stacked on top of the first. Net worth estimated at $2.8 billion. My stomach dropped. Then my phone rang. Private number. I stared at the screen as snowflakes landed on my sleeve, melting instantly. My pulse thundered so loud I could barely hear the ring. Inside, through the window, I saw Mark laughing, holding court in the living room, king of Christmas. I answered. "Ms. Blackwell?" a man said, calm, professional, American accent polished by boardrooms. "Yes," I whispered. "This is Daniel Reyes with Forbes. We'd like to confirm a few details before tonight's segment airs." I leaned against the porch railing, suddenly dizzy. "Segment?" I asked. "We're running your story in 30 minutes. Congratulations, the world is about to know who you are." Behind me, the front door opened. "Who are you talking to?" Mark asked, irritation already creeping into his voice. I turned slowly, phone pressed to my ear, snow swirling around us, my brother squinting at me like he was trying to solve a joke. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. "Yeah," I said, into the phone, eyes locked on my brother's face. "I can confirm." Mark scoffed. "Confirm what?" The TV inside suddenly changed channels on its own. Breaking news music blared, and my name flashed across the screen.
The TV volume spiked before anyone realized what was happening. That sharp, urgent music cut through the room like an alarm. Everyone froze. Forks paused midair. Conversations died in half sentences. The anchor's face filled the screen, eyes bright with the kind of excitement reserved for scandals and billionaires. "We're interrupting regular programming for breaking business news." Mark laughed under his breath. "What now?" I was still standing on the porch, phone pressed to my ear, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. Snow kept falling, soft and quiet, like the world had no idea what it was about to witness. "Ms. Blackwell," Daniel said, "we're live in 28 minutes. We just need verbal confirmation. Are you prepared to go public tonight?" Inside, my mother gasped. "Oh my God," she said, "that name!" Mark turned toward the TV, squinting. "What name?" The anchor continued. "After years of speculation, Forbes has confirmed the identity of the elusive founder behind Blackwell Protocol." Mark's smile faltered, just a flicker, barely noticeable, but I saw it. My dad stood up. "Turn it up." I stepped back inside. The warmth hit me all at once. Cinnamon, ham, old carpet, familiar judgment. I closed the door quietly behind me, phone still at my ear. "Yes," I said into the phone. "I'm prepared." Daniel exhaled. "Great. Our producers will send a car. You'll receive details shortly." He hung up. The anchor took a breath on screen, clearly enjoying the moment. "Sources confirm the founder is tech architect and systems theorist." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "Evelyn Blackwell." The room imploded. My mom screamed my name like I'd been in an accident. My dad staggered back into his chair. Mark let out a short, sharp laugh. "That's not funny," he said. "Who did this?" No one answered him. On the TV, my photo appeared, an old one. I barely recognized it. Neutral blazer, hair pulled back, taken years ago before I learned how to disappear in plain sight. The anchor kept talking, numbers, valuations, global clients, words like revolutionary and unprecedented. Mark turned slowly toward me. "That's not you," he said. His voice was tight now. "That's some other Evelyn Blackwell." I said nothing. He stepped closer. "Say something." My mother whispered, "Evelyn?" I took a breath, then another. "It's me," I said.
The silence after that was so thick it felt physical, like fog settling in my lungs. Mark shook his head. No way! You live above a laundromat. Used to, I corrected softly. You eat leftovers out of dumpsters. Sometimes, I said, when I wanted to. My dad stood up again slowly, this time, like his knees had aged 10 years in 30 seconds. How long? I looked at the TV, at my name glowing like a neon sign I'd spent my whole life avoiding. 7 years, I said. Mark barked out a laugh that sounded almost hysterical. 7 years? You're telling me you've been sitting on billions while Mom worried about you paying rent? My mom turned toward him sharply. Billions? The anchor answered for me. Forbes estimates Blackwell's net worth at approximately $2.8 billion, with projections rising sharply following today's disclosure. My mother sank into her chair. Mark looked at me like I'd slapped him. Why? The word cracked. Why? I finally met his eyes. Because I didn't want this. He stared. Nobody doesn't want this. I did. I wanted to work. I wanted to build something without being turned into a headline. That's bullshit, he said. You wanted to play poor, for attention. I laughed then. I couldn't help it. It came out sharp and tired. For attention? I said. You couldn't look at me for 5 minutes without sneering. His jaw tightened. So what? So this is some kind of gotcha? You humiliated us on Christmas for fun? I didn't plan this. They moved the story up. My phone buzzed again, then again. Messages stacked so fast the screen blurred. Unknown numbers, old contacts, journalists, investors. My mother reached for my hand. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at her, really looked. Because every time I tried to talk about what I was working on, you asked when I'd get a real job. Her eyes filled with tears. Mark scoffed. Oh, please, you expect us to believe you're some secret genius? I walked to the TV and muted it. The room went quiet again, except for my heartbeat. Blackwell Protocol started as a security model. I built it after a hospital breach killed 3 people. I didn't sell it, I licensed it, quietly. I reinvested everything. Mark crossed his arms. Prove it. I unlocked my phone, opened my email, handed it to him. His face changed as he scrolled. I watched it happen, the disbelief, the confusion, then something darker. Fear. Those are fake, he whispered. My phone buzzed again. A text preview lit the screen. Unknown. Evelyn, CNBC is requesting an exclusive follow-up. Also, congrats, your name is trending worldwide. Mark stared at the phone like it might bite him. You could have helped, he said suddenly. You could have helped Mom and Dad. You could have helped me. I tilted my head. You never asked. He opened his mouth, then closed it. On the TV, even muted, my face kept flashing. Graphics, headlines, money. My dad rubbed his temples. There are cameras outside. As if on cue, highlights washed across the living room walls. Shadows moved past the curtains. My phone rang again. This time, I recognized the number. Mark's wife stepped back, suddenly unsure where she belonged. What do they want? Mark asked. I answered the call. Yes, I said. A woman's voice, calm and crisp. Ms. Blackwell, this is the New York Stock Exchange. We'd like to discuss tomorrow morning's opening bell. Mark's breath caught. I looked at him, at my brother who once told me I'd never be anything. I have to take this, I said, and I walked out of the room while my name lit up every screen in America.
The cold outside felt different this time. Sharper, realer, like it was cutting through whatever version of me I'd been pretending to be all evening. Camera lights flared at the edge of the driveway, blinding white against the dark. Someone shouted my name. Another voice followed. Then another. Evelyn! Evelyn Blackwell! Over here! I didn't stop walking. I held the phone tighter to my ear, listening as the woman from the exchange spoke in calm, measured sentences about logistics and security and historic moments, like my entire life hadn't just cracked open on live television. Yes, I said. Tomorrow morning is fine. I hung up before she could say congratulations again. A microphone appeared in front of my face. Miss Blackwell, did your family know? Flash. Is it true you lived below the poverty line while running a multi-billion-dollar company? Flash. What do you say to critics calling this deceptive? I pushed past them, heart pounding, breath shallow. I wasn't ready for this. I'd never been ready for this. That was the whole point. A black SUV rolled up to the curb, door opening smoothly like it had been rehearsed. A man in a long coat stepped out, scanning the crowd. "Evelyn Blackwell?" he asked. I nodded. "Security," he said. "Forbes sent us early." Behind me, the front door burst open. "Wait!" Mark's voice. I turned. He stood on the porch, coat half on, face pale under the porch light. For a second, he looked younger. Not the successful golden boy, just my brother again, the one who used to steal my fries and blame me. "Don't do this. Not like this." Cameras swung instantly. I felt something twist in my chest. Not guilt, not pity, something closer to grief. "I don't have a choice," I said. "You always had choices," he snapped. "You just didn't include us." The security guy stepped between us. "Sir?" "It's fine," I said. Mark stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you leave now, you're telling the whole world we don't matter." I looked past him, through the doorway, where my mother stood frozen, and my father sat like the air had been punched out of him. "That story already aired," I said quietly. His jaw clenched. "So that's it? You humiliate us and disappear?" I almost laughed at that, almost. "I survived," I said. "You watched." For a second, something ugly flickered in his eyes. Not anger, calculation. "You owe us," he said. There it was. The SUV door closed behind me with a heavy, final sound. The engine purred to life, drowning out the reporters as we pulled away. Through the tinted window, I saw Mark standing there, fists clenched, lights washing over his face like an interrogation. My phone exploded the second we turned the corner. Messages from people I hadn't heard from in a decade. Old classmates, ex-coworkers, a woman I'd once pitched to who never replied. And then a name I didn't expect. Mark Blackwell, brother. I stared at it for a long moment before opening the message. We need to talk, not as enemies, as family. I locked the phone. The city blurred past the window. Christmas lights, closed shops, people laughing inside warm spaces I'd never been invited into. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. Same face, same eyes, but something had shifted, like the mask had finally fused to my skin. The SUV pulled up to a downtown hotel, discreet, private, already guarded. Inside, everything smelled like money and polish. The elevator ride was silent, except for the soft hum of a scent. In the suite, my assistant, one of the few people who knew everything, was already there. She looked at me carefully. "They're circling, everyone," she said. I sank onto the couch. "How bad?" She handed me a tablet. Headlines, think pieces, speculation. The billionaire who pretended to be poor. Blackwell's secret life sparks backlash. Genius or grifter? "I don't understand," I murmured. "They will," she said. "Eventually." My phone buzzed again. A new number. I answered without thinking. "Evelyn," a familiar voice said. Smooth, measured, dangerous in its calm. I sat up straight. "You said you'd never call me." "I said I'd never call you at home," he replied. "Things have changed." My pulse quickened. "How did you get this number?" He chuckled softly. "You know how." I closed my eyes. "What do you want?" I asked. "Congratulations," he said. "You're very public now." That was not the agreement. There is no agreement anymore. There are consequences to daylight. I gripped the edge of the couch. "You promised me anonymity. And you promised me control. We're both disappointed." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, heart racing. My assistant watched my face carefully. "Who was that?" "No one," I said too fast. She didn't push. She didn't have to. Outside, the city kept buzzing. Somewhere across town, my brother was probably pacing, planning, telling himself this was temporary, that blood still meant leverage.
My phone lit up one last time. A photo message. It was old, grainy, taken years ago. Me sitting at a folding table in a shared workspace, papers spread out, equations on the wall behind me, and in the corner of the frame, someone standing in the shadows, someone who was never supposed to be seen. A new message followed. You forgot who else knows the truth. I stared at the screen as my stomach dropped, realizing the story everyone thought they knew had only just begun.
I didn't sleep that night. The hotel room was quiet in the way expensive places always are, like silence has been professionally installed. The city outside glowed through the windows, unaware that my past had just started knocking again. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hands, staring at that photo until my eyes burned. I knew who it was. I just hadn't expected them to move so fast. By morning, my name was everywhere, not trending, dominating. My assistant read headlines out loud while stylists and security rotated in and out like a well-oiled machine. CNBC wants a follow-up. TechCrunch is digging into your early patents. Someone leaked your old lease records. Your brother's been calling nonstop. I ignored the last one. The car ride to the stock exchange felt unreal. Barricades, police, people chanting my name like I was a rock star or a villain. They hadn't decided yet. When I stepped onto that balcony and rang the bell, the sound echoed through my bones. Applause roared below. Cameras flashed so bright it felt like daylight. I smiled because that's what billionaires do. Inside, I felt hollow. After, in a private room smelling of coffee and steel, a man in a tailored suit shook my hand too firmly. "You're going to be asked to comment on your family," he said casually. "Control the narrative." I nodded. What I didn't tell him was that the narrative was already controlling me. Mark finally got through that afternoon. "I'm outside," he said. No greeting, no apology. We need to fix this. "There is no fix," I replied. "You embarrassed me," he snapped. "People at work are asking questions." I almost laughed. Now questions mattered. "You humiliated yourself for years. I just stopped protecting you from it." Silence. Then his voice dropped. "You think you won?" "I didn't think about you at all," I said. And that was the truth. He exhaled sharply. "You don't know what you've started." I hung up. That evening, my assistant brought me another tablet. Her face was tight. "Someone's shopping a story," she said, "about the early days, about a partner." My chest tightened. "There was no partner," I said. "There was someone in the room," she replied. "That's enough for speculation." My phone buzzed again, the same unknown number. "Tonight or I talk." I stared at the message, feeling the weight of 7 silent years press down on me all at once. I could deny it, bury it in lawyers, let the machine grind them down. Or I could face the ghost I'd built everything trying to escape. I left the hotel alone. The place was a warehouse by the river, all rust and echo and memories that smelled like cold metal and burnt coffee. He was already there, leaning against a table like time had frozen him in place. "You look expensive," he said. "You look predictable," I replied. He smiled. "I made you." "I exploited you," I said. "There's a difference." He stepped closer. "Without me, there is no Blackwell protocol." "Without me," I shot back, "you're just a man who stood in the corner and took notes." For a moment, we just stared at each other, years of secrets humming between us. "I want my share," he said finally. "There is no share," I said. "You chose the shadows." He laughed softly.
then I'll drag you back into them." I walked away before he could say more. Outside, the river moved on like none of this mattered. By the time I got back to the hotel, the story had already shifted again. New debates, new villains, new theories. My brother's face popped up in a sidebar. "Insider reacts," his quote carefully trimmed to sound wounded instead of bitter. I watched it all from the window, city lights blinking like 1,000 watching eyes. I was rich, powerful, exposed, and for the first time, completely awake. My phone buzzed one last time that night. A message from Mark. "This isn't over." I smiled faintly and locked the screen. He was right. It wasn't. If this story pulled you in, if you felt the tension, the silence, the things left unsaid, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.